I'm of the belief that I live in public. That actually even the emails that I write, even the conversations that I have to stand behind them.
If AI could take over one of your favorite tasks tomorrow, what would that be?
There's nothing I would want it to take over.
What was the most difficult, maybe even darkest situation in your life? And how did it first break you and then build you up?
I hid from my grief and I didn't see a counselor. I didn't see a therapist. I didn't want to deal with it. And I think because I was so afraid and so upset and so hurt by her loss.
You have been on many podcasts and you have gave many speeches and panel moderations and all sorts of things. Is there something that you haven't shared publicly yet or rarely spoken about? Welcome to YanaTV, where we lean into the human side of leaders, into the stories behind the titles, into the cast and the courage. And today I'm deeply honored to be joined by Dr. Ayesha Khanna, a visionary in AI, co-founder and CEO of ADDO AI, advisor to governments and corporations, and founder of 21st Century Girls. She's a woman who lived at the intersection of technology and humanity, building smart systems, shaping futures, and also holding a deep commitment to women, girls, and the ethics of innovation. But what I'm most curious today is her story, the private road she has walked, the doubts she faced, the parts of leadership that people seldom talk about. Ayesha, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Yana. Thank you for having me here.
My first question for you, what was one experience in your life that truly shaped you who you are today beyond your resume?
When I was an undergraduate and I had returned from Harvard back home, and at that time my parents lived in Lahore in Pakistan, and I was interning for a microfinance nonprofit organization. And we had to go into villages and give these microfinance loans to women. And I remember we walked into a village and I had, come prepared with my whole financials and everything. I was going to explain to this woman on how she could take this loan and make money from it and feed her kids. But when I went there, she was sitting on the floor of the hut and she had a baby that she was breastfeeding. And as I was talking to her, she stopped me because she knew exactly what she wanted to do. She may not know Excel. She may not know what ROI was or cash flow, discounted cash flow, but she knew how to make money. She understood how to buy the cows, package the milk, sell it in the village. And I was so humbled at that moment. And I realized that this elitism that we sometimes unconsciously carry. And ever since then, Yana, I am a big believer that technology and AI and anything can be understood by anyone. And we have no right to judge people, to be elitist about any technology we know about. And my whole life has become a mission to empower people through the skills they need so that they can be their best selves, because they are more than capable, much more than me, to do the things that they dream of.
When we talk about AI and ethics and not being elitist, I feel in a way it's a bit of an axioma. Because if you look at the big AI company that are founded by a handful of people, often men, and we say that AI is kind of reflection of human mind, maybe even I could stretch a bit further and say human consciousness here. So whatever we put in, that's what we get out. So how come is that not elitism or, like a certain way of looking at things?
So I have also started a podcast. We were just talking about it, called AI Across Borders. And the whole purpose of that is to talk to the minds behind the AI. And I sat across Jeff Dean, who's the chief scientist of Google. And when you talk to some of these people, you realize how humane they are, how he worked with his parents who were humanitarians and also professors, and went and worked in refugee camps in Africa, and how he appreciates the nuance, how some of the technologies and innovations that he has made makes AI accessible at much on cheap phones, for example, because otherwise the compute is so difficult. So when you meet people like that, you think they're not elitist. They actually are working to democratize access to this.
You are in the public eye a lot. I just want to hear your perspective as a female who is very publicly visible. You know, your wife, your mother, your daughter, right? Your friend, but you're also out there into the world. Um, do you want to share with me a story related to your publicity that moved you, touched you, or scared you?
When I first came to Singapore and I had come from New York, and I was on Wall Street working there, and it's very go-getter, very direct. And I remember coming to Asia and putting together a plan for this company that I was working with, and one of the gentlemen pulled me aside and said, "You know, Ayesha, that's just wanted to give you a little bit of advice. You're in Asia now, and you know, that's not very ladylike the way you're speaking." And it threw me off. It really threw me off.
So, what is ladylike?
I know. I was like, what does that mean? And I think it was because I was challenging people in a way that they were not used to. Being in the public and being authentically yourself, which could be someone who is a strong personality that has strong beliefs, has been challenging sometimes because it seems like I'm coming on very direct, and this is the Wall Street kind of approach that I'm bringing on it. But actually, it's just being honest, direct, and frank. And over time, I've become more comfortable with that side of me. And in some ways, I've also understood what he meant. He meant that I should be perhaps more emotionally intelligent in some circumstances. You can say the same thing, but you can say it better. You can say it differently. And there's cultural awareness you need too, which I lacked at that time, maybe because of my youth. So what I've understood is that you retain what is truly yourself, but then you also take advice from people to nurture it into a public persona, which reflects who you are, but then is not offensive to anyone either.
You touched upon that aspect that AI industry, men giving an advice. So I have to ask, right? I mean, I think it's a common knowledge that AI, it's still very male dominated. And there's a lot of, talk about it, a lot of work around it. But what is your personal journey? Like for you as a woman in the industry, which is not very ladylike, as the guy said, what were your challenges, or maybe what surprised you about it?
Well, I think that the most important thing that I learned about myself through all this was that I love to be creative. And that's why after growing up in Asia, I moved away from the sciences. I moved away from STEM because the way we were taught was actually in a way there was always a right answer, and there were these experiments, and you memorized these things about the human body. And it was not until I went to college and met these Olympiads in mathematics from Romania and other places like that.
Eastern Europe.
Yes,
Hello.
all
Wow.
of them. And the way that they spoke about science and technology and math was so poetic. And they were able to talk about literature, art, and poetry and math and statistics all in the same way, which was you were looking to experiment, you were looking to tinker, to get an experiment, an approximation to the truth. And that was a defining moment in my life, because that made me think, then I can do math and statistics, and then from there applied math, and from there neural networks, and then from there data science, and their technology firm. And that core inside me that needed to be creative is still very much there. And I find technology very fulfilling.
You're talking about multidisciplinary approach to everything. So let's say if I were to ask you, what is your favorite poem or book that you feel should be included in the AI coding for everyone, and why?
I think all AI engineers should read Borges. They should read Rilke. They should read Dostoevsky. They should definitely read my cousin, Mohsen Hamid, who's an incredible novelist from Pakistan. They should read literature. They should read poetry. They should read philosophy, whether it's Socrates or Rawls or whatever it may be, social sciences, development economics. And they will really enjoy it and it will inform the way they do AI. But it's not a one-way street. So we would want artists to also learn about how AI works, not only how to use it in their work, but also what is our philosophical relationship with AI.
Wow, I love that. Sort of shifting the gears a little bit and zooming in, on you and your life. What I hear often from women who are very successful in the society, that they usually struggle with relationship. Like usually, many not married, many don't have children. So you seems to be the one who kind of have it all together. You have a husband, you have 2 kids, and your husband also is very successful and he's very public. So you have 2 leaders within the family in a relationship. So how does that work?
I think it's very important that the way it works is that when you're home, and because we have children, we have a dog, we have parents that have shown us that when you're in the home, you are just like everybody else, right? I think that's very important. There was a time when I had started my company because when you're in that company building mode, it's a lot of high energy, a lot of power. I was bringing it to the dining table, right? And as my kids grew older, I wanted them to rebel, not mommy to be rebelling against the world and saying interesting things or whatever. And I think that nothing gives me more pleasure than hearing about them and their world and also showing a lot of respect to energy in the house, right? So you can't just suck up all the energy, either because you're talking too much or because you're just a very energetic person taking up space. And I think my role model has been my own mother, who was very gentle, very brilliant, a professor of English literature, and my father and my in-laws, who are just gentle in their demeanor and leave space for people to talk, leave space for people to just be at peace and calm. And the sense that all of us are doing something. So we had this really wonderful woman who would come and she would clean our house. And I remember my mother would sit and chat with her, and very often she would say, she's a working woman just like me. And so I have this belief that whether we are sitting at home or whatever we're doing, we are all working women. We are all equal in that sense. And so you cannot take up too much disproportionate energy. And that has been a very useful way for me to think about it. And it's made me really happy.
Many women struggle with that. Many professional women, they struggle to shift, right? So that's because when you go out there, and especially if you're in a big role and you're a public figure, where you have a lot of money that you have to manage, with many people that you have to manage, it brings up that adrenaline and that. So what I heard from many of them when they come home, that's why the problem starts often within the family or relationships, that they don't always know how to shift. So how do you do that?
Well, my mother-in-law is a meditation teacher. And so she taught us a lot of breath work. And she's been very helpful. And of course, our parents are very involved in advising us, as Asian parents do, right? They're very involved. I think that no relationship is easy, right? This is why I struggle with the social media sometimes, because there is this impression that it's easy, that it's perfect. And yet I'm old enough to know when I see something, I know they've had 10,000 ups and downs. And I celebrate their happiness and I also empathize with their downs. But I think it's for young people that it appears that way sometimes. But hopefully with more of us talking as we're doing now, it's much more obvious that everybody has struggled.
Since we're still on the family topic, I know your kids now are a bit more grown up, but when they were little and you were pregnant and giving birth. So how did you manage that with your professional ambitions?
I started working from home and I started doing remote jobs. So I was an editor for a magazine for a while. I was doing some work with a friend of mine who has a consulting firm. I started my own firm. I've always worked from home with my own firm, except when I used to travel for it. So I have always just tried to have a portfolio career. And I think women, we have a portfolio career because, like men, by the way, men do a lot at home now too.
After COVID.
Yeah. So you have a lot of men and women juggling home and juggling parents and juggling work and inflation and kids. So I don't think I did everything that I could have. If I had only led one life, maybe I could have been very successful
Like in business, for example.
in business, for example, right? Or I could have been a much better mother, or I could have
Well,
been
hello,
a much
mom
better
guilt, we all have.
right? But I think I'm okay with kind of my I've done the best that I can. And I think, Yana, you have just caught me at an age and a time when I'm much more relaxed about all this.
I can see you very relaxed.
Yes.
You're like, here I am, take it or leave it. This is
Right.
just who I am. I'm just curious, like as we talk also about aging for women, right? There was all this narrative, maybe even like a 10, 20 years ago, this
Yeah.
eternal sort of fight for youth
Yeah.
with our body, with our
Yeah.
mind, with our lifestyle. And I feel like lately I have been noticing that it's shifting and women becoming wiser and they just care less about what society thinks and they become happier. So what do you think about that, this whole shift?
Yeah, I think it's very healthy. It's not about caring less. If anything, you start waking up and you want to be more of service to those around you. But I think women just settle in themselves over time, and so do men for that matter. And it's good to see. I'm so glad in Singapore we have very multi-generational living. Even if we don't live in the same house together, you see it all around you. And there is so much to learn from those who are a bit older and how gracefully they have led their life. And so I am 100% at the benefit. I'm the beneficiary of all of this. And it's been really good because when I was younger, I wasn't paying attention. And maybe that's okay too. Because as a teenager, you don't listen. In your 20s, you listen, but not really. Then over time, everybody goes through this. My mother used to say this. My father used to say this. But I also think the younger generation, Generation Z, is also inspiring because they're so much more balanced.
Absolutely.
And that's very nice to see. They want to think about health and mental well-being. So I think there's a lot of good vibes all around us at the moment.
Good advice. Okay, so shifting a little bit, like I'm zooming in into the heart of heart, okay? What was the most difficult, maybe even darkest situation in your life? And how did it first break you and then build you up?
I think when I lost my mother after graduating from college,
That's young.
that was very hard for me. She was very young also. But, and I don't think I dealt with it well. I don't think I dealt with it the way she would have wanted me to deal with it because I hid from my grief. And I didn't see a counselor. I didn't see a therapist. I didn't want to deal with it. And I think because I was so afraid and so upset and so hurt by her loss. And so after that, it took me a long time. It was actually in COVID then that I finally got some counseling for it. But then that was a very difficult time for me because I used to cry all the time, even in the subway. But she, there are lots of great memories with her. Now, when I think of her, I really think of her as celebrating her life. Whatever life she had, she died when she was, in her late 40s. But she lived it really well. And she was very bright, but gentle and empathetic and courageous and a great role model for me. But at that time, I would urge anybody who loses a parent or a loved one to seek help. I think that was something now I tell my own children all the time. Seek help, go talk to somebody. I don't regret because I don't regret anything, but I do feel like I would have been a wiser situation. It was self-inflicted.
But then you dealt with that. So how did it build you up?
It doesn't build you up, but you heal from it. Okay. So I think the right thing is, I was unhappy and then I healed. sometimes we just encounter things and we have to deal with them. Um, and then we move on, in gratitude, but also in with that pain, we walk with it.
Thank you for sharing that. I know it's a very personal story, so thank you for sharing. Um, do you have some kind of personal, rarely spoken of, invisible rituals that you do at home for yourself if you had a tough day or very happy day? So, like something that helps you to stay balanced physically, mentally, emotionally. Like, what do you do?
So there are a couple of things.
Mhm.
I love to hang out with my dog. So I spend some time with him, and that is very calming. I think anybody who has a pet can relate to that. Sometimes when I've been working a lot, I will literally just go for a walk. That helps a lot too, because I will just have to walk out, just move. Because I think sometimes with the laptops, we can be quite sedentary, and I'm trying to change that.
And this science, I think, now also shown when we move body, we actually change the state of our mind.
Yes.
So it's 100%. Yeah.
Or even, when I was younger, I used to dance a lot.
Yes,
just
why
like
not?
that's very nice.
Exactly.
Other things are like going out with your friends, etc. But they are not in the moment, right?
Mhm.
In the moment, movement, breath work, and if you have your pet nearby, they're all win-win. Also, because they're not demanding, they're energy releasing.
What do you like about your life the most?
Oh, I'm very grateful.
I can see that. That's why I'm asking.
I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful because I have finally learned to live in the moment. And so used to, when I was younger, maybe because of my the loss that I had, I used to think a lot about the past and the future and have guilt and have anxiety. And now I have spent a lot of time working on myself. And so living in the moment, enjoying this moment fully with you, who I've known for a long time, to see you so happy now as a mom and in your work makes me happy. And so I'm enjoying the moment.
You have been on many podcasts and you have gave many speeches and panel moderations and all sorts of things. Is there something you could share with us today that you haven't shared publicly yet or rarely spoken about?
I'm of the belief that I live in public. That actually, even the emails that I write, even the conversations that I have to stand behind them. If I haven't spoken about it, it's not that I've hidden it. It's just it hasn't come up. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm telling you all of these things because you've asked. Our data is kind of out there.
Data is data. You ask, it comes. If you don't ask, it doesn't
Or
come.
also, our data is out there.
Yes.
And so it's good you can keep it private if you want, but if you want to share it, one can. So if there's a specific thing, like you asked me a few things, I've never spoken about that before, but I'm happy to do that. In that sense, I think it's kind of an open book.
You talked about data and that you're in data, and it's just like what we know is data, and even more now is AI, right? I mean, there's just so much information. I mean, people now counseling ChatGPT, right? Do you think it is healthy? It is normal? It is safe? It is good for us to do this? What are your thoughts?
So I'm not a counselor or a psychologist, so I can't comment on. It's a complicated question, and I want to be careful about how
you
it's
treat
said.
it. Yeah.
Because I talk to ChatGPT.
I talk to ChatGPT too.
And so let me be, I talk to women all the time, and they say, we shouldn't give our health information. I give my health information too, because in the moment we want some answers, but we're older, you see.
Yeah,
So
and we know the difference. Yes.
Yes. So sometimes our instincts I think that for children, for sure, they should not go down those rabbit holes. For us, when we are depressed and it's saying, we have to be careful around it. So if I'm asking something about, if I take a screenshot of a blood test and I put it there, but I remove my name from it, I try to do it on Claude or on enterprise version, which I know is safer, is private. I try to be careful. But am I that person who doesn't engage with any of the AIs? No, I use them all the time for work. And it is human nature in the middle. If something comes up, you'll just ask something. But I do think that children should be taught. We should be taught. You should be taught. And that's why I've started this AI education platform. where it's all about business, but there's one vertical just on productivity hacks and focus and how to be careful with AI. I'm going to have psychologists and people who are researching this tell me, and I'm going to share that with the world because we need the right person to tell us.
What are your two favorite AI apps and why?
Yeah, so I love Perplexity because it's a search engine and I find it to be very accurate. I like ChatGPT. It's very fast and it does very good research. In the pro version, I definitely use Claude. Claude also does a lot of analysis. It's also a little bit more thoughtful. So I use it for research, right? For example, sometimes I'm looking at a paper that has come out in AI and I'll read it, or rather I'll ask the AI to read it, and then I'll say, now tell me what other people will think about this, or tell me a counterpoint of view, or tell me an assumption it's making. And I'll go back and forth. So when I'm with AI, it's like very chatty. Like it's a lot of back and forth. And I ask it to play a role. Maybe I'll say you're a lawyer, you're a facilitator, you're this, you're that. And I think we're not using it enough like that as a thought partner. It's
like
not
a debate partner or
like
conversationalist.
like a conversationalist. I think that is the role playing is very useful. And then of course I tell it all the time. I'm like, don't lie, don't make things up, give me citations. Just this morning it was telling me something. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Are you making it up? It was like, yeah, I am. So you have to. That's what I want to.
I didn't know Ayesha has a sense of humor. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was apologetic, but it was like I think that it's a good catch. So the thing is that we have to make sure, because it's called generative AI, it can generate things, including just be creative, right? And we have to anchor it down. We have to say, look, only tell me things that are in research papers, or give me a citation. Tell me where you got this from. And so I have these saved prompts where it's constantly telling it, don't confabulate, don't lie, don't make things up. Only give me good sources. Tell me your sources.
So since we are talking about redefining success on this particular season of YanaTV, my question to you right now would be, if you were to speak to your younger self, maybe just the younger generation of women, and the question would be, how can I become successful without losing or sacrificing my soul in the modern world? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say that don't look for a productive day, look for a balanced day. And I think that some of us, when we are successful in a very narrow kind of way, we are putting extreme energy into one at the cost of relationships, at the cost of our own health, at the cost of downtime, all of which is because we're too young to realize it's a very long marathon. And so you constantly need to self-correct. And for that, nobody's going to help you. You need to self-correct your own thoughts. So the biggest issue that I feel that I had, I would say your racing thoughts.
I think we all have them. Come on.
Learn to stop them. And so, I spent a lot of time to get rid of the racing thoughts that could be negative or have anxiety about the future. And then when I start a new project, I get so excited. I realized that's also racing thoughts. Happy thoughts doesn't mean they're not racing thoughts. I'm still overthinking.
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping. I'm not resting. So that constant, pulling oneself back is very important. And then what happens is that once you do that, then you become very mellow. And that's not useful either, frankly speaking.
Because
if you want to be
can't move
successful.
anything in the real life, right?
And then you go to the next point and you're like, well, I'm mellow when I'm supposed to be mellow, and I'm hardcore when I'm supposed to be hardcore. And, it's kind of like when you eat, when you walk, and when you work, you work. So it is that single-minded being present in what you're supposed to do. And what energy level you're supposed to bring to the moment. And so I'm in that phase now where I was, too intense, one-sided, then I became too mellow. Now I'm going to be balanced. So I think that's what I would tell myself.
What a self-aware woman. Wow.
It's been a long journey.
Wow. Which brings me to our fireside, very quick 5 questions. Okay, don't think much. So I'm just going to, okay. So If AI could take over one of your favorite tasks tomorrow, what would that be?
And I know it's supposed to be a fireside, but there's nothing I would want it to take over. I think that I want to be in charge. I want it to help me, and it is helping. And I will correct it when it misbehaves because it sometimes makes mistakes consciously, unconsciously at the moment. And so, no, I don't want it to take over anything. It's my life, it's my work.
Look at this power. I like that. Okay, next one. So, what's something small that never fails to make you feel human again after a long day?
I think I like a cup of tea. I love that. Something I can touch, because I don't have hobbies like my son and my daughter have really good hobby, but I don't knit, I don't do anything. So I need something like
You
tangible.
don't knit, seriously, Ayesha? Wow. I mean, I can't imagine.
I think people paint, people sing. Like our cook at home, she loves to sing and she plays the banjo. I mean, I love it. For her, after a long day of cooking, dinner, then that's her release, and we all benefit from it in the house. But for me, if I'm like having a cup of tea and maybe just relaxing, that's what is my downtime. But I wish that I did have something I could do with my hands and tangible, but that's something I should think about.
No, that's your takeaway, I guess,
That's
from
my
our
takeaway.
conversation.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Okay. So if your younger self could see you now, what would she be most surprised about?
I think she'd be very surprised because she never thought that happiness is about being still. I think it was the furthest thing from my mind in New York City, in the middle, in my 20s. And I think that's okay that she felt that way because it was exciting. It was moody, there was ups and downs, but that's what that time is for. But she'd be very surprised to see me today advocating for stillness in an age of so much geopolitical tension, disruption with AI. But she would find it very familiar how energetically hopeful and optimistic I am. Not naively optimistic, but very mission driven in bringing that to everyone and living in action.
You're like a just paradox of the opposites, like the universe. Okay. So I'm gonna go deeper then into the self-awareness, okay? So you have built a company around intelligence. And the question now from me to you, so what is one thing about life you still don't understand?
I mean, I don't understand many things about life. I don't understand why some people are lucky and others are not. I think that's it always breaks my heart. I think seeing women, especially in different parts of the world. I mean, we're sitting over here
In Singapore?
It's luck, right?
Yeah,
to be here.
Definitely.
And so I don't like it. I don't subscribe to it. I don't understand it. And I understand that everybody has good and bad weeks and seasons, but this is worse than that sometimes when people are born in a certain way and there's no escape. So that I don't understand. And I would very much like that not to be the case.
When everything is said and done, and we talk about your children, right? Or maybe also you could talk about the next generation, other children. What would you like them to remember the most and focused on in life?
I would very much like them to focus on community. I think that's very, very powerful. Everything we do vis-a-vis all the beings around us. Now, it doesn't only have to be humans. It could be animals. It could be nature. But I think there's something really wonderful about a community of people and how deeply, deeply good that makes one feel. And I hope that in their ambition or their unhappiness or their ups and downs, they don't forget to have that wonderful community around them. And that takes effort, by the way, something that I neglected because I was like, I have so many things to do. But over time, I've been investing more in that because it actually makes me very happy. And I see women who did that, who were my friends, and I think they were happier many more years than me because they did not let go of community.
Thank you so much, Ayesha. That
Thank
was
you,
very
Yana.
heartfelt, very honest, very human, very, very, very human for very AI person. I mean, I know you well, but for our audience, I can see that you really showed your heart today, and it is very beautiful, not just your brilliant mind. And so thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for coming
Yana.
and sharing all of those stories. And for all of us watching, I also would love us just to remember that leadership is not always about mastering everything or understanding everything. It's about sometimes just experiencing things without meaning and growing through them and choosing being present and not always perfect and connected and not always conquering something when we being touched to provoke by the conversations and people like this one. So if this is your case today, then please share that, comment your reflections. I will read all of them. And until next time, may you lead with truth, may your courage be your compass, and may your story be the gift to the world that it needs.
An opinion is not validated, and it's dangerous, in my opinion, sometimes. In my opinion.
I love that, yes.